vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, overcoming all obstacles. This is the 8th and final race of the 2008 ABSA Off-Road Championship, and with a little less than 100 km to the finish line and the end of the year at the Tolton Raceway outside Krugersdorp, it was Gary Berthold and Andre Vermeulen who were dominant at the front in their Atlas Copco Porter. But just after this, unfortunately, they too flattered, and it cost them some time to repair and change.
The perennial prologue winner has had an up-and-down season, but was hoping for a big win to end the year on a high note.
For the Sawbots from Palabora, well, they had to figure a way to keep the other title contenders at bay. Berthold wasn't a threat, but they had to get their bat spec 4 to the line and score the vital championship winning points.
Colley and his son Quinton have had a phenomenal season and have been very consistent in staking their claim for the South African Special Vehicle title.
A third on the road and leading the RFS Magalies 400 as well as the Virtual National Championship, Duncan Vos was letting it all hang out. He had a solid lead over his stablemate Grobler, while the Ford crew were having rear axle problems that would slow them tremendously.
In third place in the specials, it was the surprise package, Colin Matthews and Alan Smith, in the red, bluer and yellow of Century Property Developments. They were just more than 30 seconds ahead of their nearest pursuers.
And that nearest pursuer was none other than Shamir Varayawa. The two-time winner this season had opened up the taps after DSP and was catching up time with every turn of the wheel. That big Porter PR1 was humming along. Siegfried Rousseau holding on for dear life.
The dust was still a factor, but by now almost 20% of the cars had dropped out of a tough race. And Cronje and Birkin were letting it slide all over the road, rally style. Mark is after a national rally champion.
Yes, sir, and he was enjoying himself in the chase. Slightly more than 4 minutes behind Duncan Vos right here, but he was giving it his all.
Whitehouse and Carlson in the Regent Racing Bat Spec 4 were producing one of their finest showings of the season and were rock solid and into the top 5.
Talking rock solid, they don't come much more solid than Grobler, who has celebrated winning this championship 4 times. He'd caught up and passed more than a dozen cars in the process. The Sasol Nissan Navara man was flying.
But would he catch Cronje and then Vos?
He was 6 minutes back with another surprise package. Moore and Pienaar in their Free Spirit Chev up into 7th place overall and 5th in Class A. A brilliant performance.
Visser and Badenhorst and the Castrol Toyota were about to score valuable points for their manufacturer and grab a well-deserved 4th place in the SP class.
With the husband and wife team of the Parkhuisens producing their best ever finish in 5th behind them, just 8 odd minutes further back.
The dust was still a problem, and overtaking even more so, as the Adenko bat of Class B leaders like the Bezuidenots almost slipped by with the visibility almost non-existent.
And the Harpers were right up there now after the drive of the day. They passed 22 cars, just an incredibly brave and risky drive from the father and son in a brand new car.
Well, all the power to them as they made their way into the top 6, with Zermattens intent on winning their 5th race of the season in the Ryobi Nissan.
Olofsson and Quinn were next, settling for 6th place in the SP class, making it a great day for the massive Japanese manufacturer.
And the Class B battle was a fine one for young Cry, who pushed it all the way, getting away from the opposition with more than 10 minutes to spare.
In Class D, Weigelt and Els had to settle for 2nd, but after a rather average season, were pleased to bring the Toyota home.
It was certainly a race that tested car and body, as the Malelani Toyota men, Johan and Werner Horn, took 7th, ahead of some much fancied crews.
Taylor and Houghton had suffered several maladies during their almost 6-hour ride out there. Firstly, they had to repair the 4-wheel drive at DSP, made up places, and then got stuck in the dust behind Malelani Toyota for almost 70 kilometers. But they proved that they can hang tough if they really have to.
In Class B, the De Bruyns were within sight of the line, but Cry had flown away from them this time.
And a weather-beaten Ford Ranger in the hands of Graham Leith was on the way to clinching a top 10 place. A fine performance for the newcomer.
The Feltex Imperial Toyota, with Mike Thompson and Brian Haviland inside it, rounded out the top 10 in 6 hours and 5 minutes. Another good drive from them.
With the Unifreight Ford Ranger, Van Tonder and Weichelt standing in for an injured Rian Grapper, getting close to the finish line, but ultimately not making it.
As for the top 10 in the specials, there was movement up and down the order right up to the finish line at the Tarleton International Raceway.
The RFS men were happy with their performance in Class D. Christian de Plooy and Henk Janssen van Vuren took a well-deserved third place, clocking 6 hours and 16 minutes.
And in Class B, former champion Gil Nel and Dion de Kock in the Lux Zarco Truggy for their third, making it a fine season for the duo. Cape Town-based Derek du Toit and Ian Pienaar in a bat in their best performance this whole season. With Raceonic's Labuschagne and Gerber fourth in their class after a round trip which took almost 6.5 hours.
They were pushed all the way home by Ruacon CEO Peter Ruthven and De Waal Boshoff, who finished 8th in Class A.
And then eventually passed.
In Class E, it was the Hunting brothers who brought home their Toyota for the line honours with more than 13 minutes in the bank. A great win for them in the Magaliesburg.
And the men who were that much behind, Malcolm Koch and Wayne Brunk in their Toyota.
The Baden Tyres crew of Thomas Rundle and Rob Howie settled for third, just 5 minutes further back.
The De Bruins were fighting several small problems and eventually had to give up the ghost. The Toyota wasn't going a step further.
And back in Class P, Nick Gosler and Richard Carolyn took third, almost exactly 10 minutes behind the Besaidnoks.
Unhappily for Ford and Woolridge and Schulthammer, their title challenge went out the window when their Ford's broken axle weld produced drive shaft problems, and they limped home in 19th place. End of championship.
The line though, leading overall and handsomely winning the RFS Magalies 400, and as a result the national championship, it was the Silvots who had slipped past Bertov after he punctured 3 times.
And a well-deserved round of applause for Nissan's Force, who stormed home to win his 2nd consecutive championship, outlasting the others and driving a quick and exacting race. Cully was emotional.
Yeah, I'm over the moon. I really am. It's yeah, it's nice. We won the race, we won the season. It's wasn't expected once again. And I must tell you, we are really, really very overjoyed. It's really something for us.
This is emotional.
Yeah, it's true. And with Quinton as my navigator, it was so fantastic. I mean, first year for Quinton, and he did it, so we're very happy.
Now, it's been around a dozen years since you won your last championship, Cully.
Yes, yeah, 12 years ago, and things have changed, eh? Well, for the better, I suppose. No, things got really much faster. But, oh, we're so happy. It's all glory to our God, really. It's wonderful to be here.
The Matthew-Smith combination took 2nd in the specials, 2 minutes and 20 seconds in arrears, while Duncan was a happy but very tired driver.
Yeah, geez, we had a great weekend. You know, we put it on pole, we led from the start the vehicle category, and couldn't have gone better for us. It was really a great weekend.
This must have made up for the early season disappointments, Duncan.
Yeah, you know, it's such a difficult sport. You know, you get punished for the slightest mistake, and the cars go through such hard terrain that you can't always expect to have a 100% finishing record. But no, we ecstatic.
Grobler got to the line in double quick time, but he effectively lost the championship to Force on a count-out on wins, with Moore celebrating a National Navigator Championship.
It was a very busy day at the office. This morning we started number 9 in the SP class.
And yeah, lots of dust and lots of guys that trouble flat wheels and terrible rocks in this terrain. But yeah, we came all the way past them and ended up third.
Believe you had a bit of a problem with the train.
Yes, yeah, we had a problem with the train this morning. We spent about 3 minutes behind the train with some other guys as well. And yeah, so the result's not clear yet, but we'll see if we can get time for the train back.
The Barkhuisens produced their best finish ever. Same for the Zermattens. As for Henry Zermatten and his brother Maurice, the men from the south were happy to win 5 titles and a National Class D championship to boot.
Oh, that was fantastic. Yeah, we didn't get out the car once. We put in 3 cans of fuel at the pit stop, and for the rest it just ran. No hassle whatsoever.
Was it a tough route out there?
You had to be very careful. It was fast, but the rocks were so close to the edge. Well, just the slightest mistake and you'd have a puncture. So
Neil Woolridge and Kenny Schulthammer were forced to repair their Ford like this, but got it to the line.
Yeah, unfortunately it was not a little bit of bad luck, a hell of a lot of bad luck. We broke, the back axle broke about 30 kilometers from the end, and we made a plan. We ratchet strapped it all back in and just crawled back in first and second gear. But that was a great pity because we were having a good run. We were lying in third place, but I think we could have been up to second because we got held up with the train this morning. I think we stopped at the train line for about 2 minutes, and that's approximately the gap we had to the Toyota in front of us. So yeah, if only racing, you can't race like that. But you know, we're very happy. We finished 8 out of 8 events this year. The car's been fantastic. I don't think we can complain. It's just a pity our bad luck had to come right at the end.
A fine win for Force, which cemented his championship, while Cronje and Birken had one of those so close and yet so far seasons. Grobler and Moore will rue those prologue punctures for a while. Sheer consistency proved to be the most important factor in a dream season for Karl-Heinz and Quinton Silval in the special vehicle category of the ABSA Off-Road Championship. Victory for the Silvals, and Agatha Christie could not have written a much better script. It came down to the wire in both classes out there. Variawa and Rousseau needed one more victory in the season.
The National Championship, and again, how tight can it be? 133 points, and Voss gets the nod due to one more race victory. But that made it 51 for Nissen and a 7th consecutive national crown for Glenn Hall and his team.
The manufacturer's trophy was clinched by Toyota, whose privateers were stalwarts all season long, winning it by 52 points and Ford taking third.
Until the next time, you keep it on the road.
We'll keep it off-road.
That was the ultimate test.